even. And that's what you want it to be, is exactly even on both sides. Well, behind it, I mean, there's a little bit of distorted because it's on a slight hill there, but you know, if it's even next to it, it's going to be even behind it. It just, that picture's a little deceiving. But if you just stand next to it, you get the shadow even on both sides. That's the most important part of focusing it. Now, if you're going to slow cook, you want to put it where the sun's going to be at noon. So at noon, again, at the summertime, it's just flat on the ground. So if you're starting earlier in the morning, the leg is going to be up, or in the late afternoon. As you saw when you came, the ovens I had there, I actually had one turned upside down, and I'll explain why I did that in a minute. But so the first and most important issue of focusing is that you want it to be even shadows on both sides. The second thing is then the starting point of the shadow. And you'll see in this picture there's a starting point of the shadow, and it comes directly even. If I had this out in the sun, I'd want my starting point of the shadow to be even with the front of the oven right here. Okay? So I'll show you in this picture, but basically, you know, wherever the sun is, I don't want a shadow to be ahead of it, and I don't want a shadow to be back here. I want it to be even with this board right here, like it is in this picture. So if you look at this picture, you'll see that the shadow starts right underneath that board, and that's where you want to keep it. So in the early morning, you just raise it up more, and if we're outside in the sun, it's so much easier to understand this in the sun than it is from these pictures, but I use the pictures just to have something so you can tell with it. And that's what you want to, you know, have as far as your focusing. But almost always, if you don't get full temperature, it's usually because the back leg is used too much, and that's actually creating shadows inside the oven, which reduces the temperature of it.
How hot can you normally?
In this area, you'll consistently, you should be at 350 to 375. Sunday I was in Park City, and Sunday was an exceptionally good day for solo cooking. I was at 400, and I talked to a woman who was here earlier. She was cooking at the State Fair Sunday, and she's been using the sun ovens for about 3 years, and she got it up to 415, which is the first time she's ever done that. And I've only done that twice, and all the times I've used it. So, but you're always around the city, particularly in a valley like this. Thanks for coming. Always around the city in a valley like this, you have a certain amount of ozone, so you don't usually get much above 350 to 375 because the ozone filters a little bit of the sun out of it. So, but 350 on sunny days consistently shouldn't be a problem here. I've done that many times, and we're up above that even in the parking lot here this afternoon. So, any other questions? Yes.
Tell us again on pasteurizing water. What was the
The
temperature?
temperature for pasteurization is 159 degrees Fahrenheit for 6 minutes.
Another question on the water. You said you could put 6 canning jars. I'm assuming you would put those on that if you set it right on.
Well, okay, the leveling tray you can put right on. I mean, you can put 6 canning jars right on this tray. So that wouldn't be a problem to get 6 of them, and it won't be a problem just hang it. So I'll set it right in the tray. Yes.
With the cookie sheets, is there a type of cookie sheet that is better than another?
No, the biggest challenge, frankly, with the cookie sheets is finding cookie sheets that fit in here. Okay. One of the drawbacks is that this is about 11.5 inches across. You can stretch it to 12 inches, but most 9x12 pans have a little lip which won't fit. Now, what you may want, a little handle lip. So the which again are on those order forms that have been emailed are sets of these. What you can do though is if you want to use a like a casserole dish that's 9x12 that's got a small lip, if you take one of the cookie sheets, even if it's empty, and just put it like this, the other direction you have another inch of room. So you can put it this way, but there's a slight taper to the bottom of the oven, so if you try to put it directly on the leveling tray, it doesn't fit. But if you raise it up the amount of one of these brownie pans, you can use a 9x12 pan with a little bit of a lip sitting the other, if it's got a small lip, sitting this direction. So you can use the bigger pan the opposite way of the leveling tray. Yes?
Do you use cooking oil or parchment paper when you do that?
I mean, these kind that are like Teflon or, you know, I used it on stick, but you can use parchment paper. It's not going to hurt anything. Parchment paper won't catch on fire or anything. Yes, sir.
How much is this?
We're not supposed to talk about money or this here in the church. So there is the list that goes out with the email.
Outside.
Catch me in the parking lot.
Is it in the Christmas present range?
Well,
We have a big family.
you know, every year, I mean, that's when we sell the most sun ovens is at Christmas time for people who do buy them for friends and family. So, to be frank, I couldn't answer the question because I honestly, I don't know what they're selling for. But you know, you can get that information on the email. Yes.
Are there enough hours in the winter to cook a turkey the way you were talking about?
If you micromanage it, yes.
By
Yeah,
shifting?
I mean,
Okay.
you know, refocus it every 25, 30 minutes, yes. Now, the one thing I did outside, and I did want to mention because that would go to that question. If you want to start cooking early in the morning, or you want to expand the hours of cooking, you may have noticed that one of the ovens out there was upside down, and that was actually intentional. If you take the leveling tray out of the oven, and you open the oven then like this, and you put the, I should have put this, it's easier if you latch it when you don't have it upside down, but you then open it up and you take, again, something like the cooling rack or trivet, and you put it inside the oven. This will, and then take your pot and put it on top of this. This will add, and if you did it in the morning and afternoon, it'll add an hour and a half to your cooking time, about 45 minutes in the morning, 45 minutes in the afternoon. I write a blog, and I wrote a blog about making breakfast in the sun oven. And you know, if you want to start cooking from the very first light of day by setting it like this, or if you noticed when you came up, the ones that were on the leg weren't high enough anymore because the sun was way up in the horizon, you know, at 6:45, 7 o'clock. But the one that was sitting on the ground still had temperature in it because I had it sitting like this. So if you set it, now there's one drawback of this. You have to stand on your head to read the thermometer. So if you can't stand on your head, you can't do that. But by doing this, you are able to then be able to start cooking earlier in the day and cook later in the day. If I were going to be making a turkey, for example, in November, I would want to preheat the oven from first light and get it as hot as possible before putting it in, and then that, so this is how you could accomplish doing that, and then micromanage it. And yes, if it's sunny, I mean, people in, you know, real sunny areas do turkeys all the time at Thanksgiving. It really depends on what the weather is like on that day. If it's not a bright sunny day, I probably would try to cook it another way because you may be having a lot of disappointed people waiting for it to finish cooking. In Utah, you know, winter sun in Utah is so tricky, so you just never know.
Did you try to cook your cinnamon rolls like that?
That's how I tried it, but I didn't start them until 6:25. That's how I had them in. That's why I started the cinnamon rolls. But I started them. If I started them 10 minutes earlier, I would have been fine. I mean, good sun, I can do those cinnamon rolls in 20 minutes. And I thought, well, I got a half hour, I'll try. But the sun was pretty far in the horizon, and I was at temperatures about 250, and I needed just a little more time that we just didn't have tonight to do that.
In Utah, like most other places, some days it looks like it's going to be sunny all day, and then all of a sudden you have these little clouds that come, and I have had so many experiences where I put something in, and it's just perfectly cloudless, and then they'll come, and then I'll rush it back in the house because the clouds come, and then they disappear again, and then I rush it back out, and do you just leave them in?
Leave it in. Keep in mind, as long as the temperature is above 170, you're cooking. So when it drops to 200, you're still cooking. It's slow, but it's cooking. So, you know, if you're up at the 300 and then it drops down to 2, it's going to continue to cook, and it will actually be better to leave it in and then wait for the sun to come back than to take it out. Now, if it drops below 170, then you do want to take it out. Now, and from a safety standpoint, the rule basically is you never want it to go below 150 for 90